Here.
Ron.
Here.
Katrina.
Here.
Petrofest.
Present.
Robinson.
Dr. Scott, I didn't get one of these, or Dr. Scott never told me that was going to give me.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My favorite part of the meeting is recognitions. So, first up, it's cheerleading. Coach Joanne. Coach, you here? Coach? Let me just read this impressive FCX Grand Champion, Quinnipiac Cheer Challenge Grand Champion, Watertown Cheer Fest Champions, State Double L Champions, Connecticut High School Cheerleading Team of the Year, Connecticut Open State Champions, New England Regional Championships, 5th place finish. Awesome.
Most of the team is here, yes.
You guys should come up also.
Have to get in the middle.
Slideshow, contact mayor, channel.
Can we do a pyramid? About like an hello cheer or something. If you want to give us a 2 minute, your journey to where all these championships are, maybe when we finish up, maybe like a 2-second little cheer out of
Our team this year is comprised of 9 seniors, 4 juniors, 1 sophomore, 1 freshman. So we have outstanding senior leadership this year.
Yeah, much better.
Outstanding senior leadership, as well as 3 outstanding senior captains. Individually, we also had 6 FCX Scholar athletes, 3 all-FCX cheerleaders, and 3 all-state cheerleaders, in addition to all the team titles that they won this year. It's an outstanding group with great team chemistry, and we're going to miss them next year.
Congratulations. So everybody in the audience should listen for a second. There are scholarships at the university for cheerleading, right? And it is possible to get a 4-year scholarship. They are athletes and considered athletes that are scholarshipable. So it's a great aspiration to strive for that. It's just remarkable that your accomplishments at the level, particularly in this state, where it's pretty competitive. So nice job, ladies. If you want, you can all leave. That's okay, so we can get some air and seats.
We're trying to support our other student athletes as well.
You guys can hang out if you want. Okay, next up, boys track, Coach Rob Murray.
Yeah, I can speak on their behalf.
Okay, come on. So FCI Western Division champion, FCI champion, State Double L champion, State Open champion. Boys track, awesome.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Nick Fraticelli. I'm the head girls track and field coach. The boys had a very successful season this year. They had 104 guys on their roster. Many all FCX, all state, state open champions. They worked really hard every single day. And sort of brought a team first mentality. to their competitions and to their practices every single day and carry themselves with the utmost dignity throughout the course of the season. So they should be very proud of their accomplishments.
Is there any team here? No?
It is, we are issuing benchmarks this week, so I believe they're home studying for those.
Okay, next up, girls track. Nick Classell.
Guess we'll have to do this again. So thank you very much. Again, the girls track and field team is a great group of young ladies. They also, in much the same fashion, conduct themselves in a competitive mode. They work together. They promote a team-first mentality and just value the consistency of hard work. And I truly believe that athletics at Danbury High School are very much co-curricular. We always talk about the things that translate into the classroom setting, like diligence and hard work, and bringing that to the table in a consistent fashion. And I do believe these young ladies really do exemplify that every single day. I'd like to thank our senior leaders for everything that they brought to the team when they were freshmen. They sort of saw the challenges that the sport offers and grew within the context of that. And they went from a team that had to go through some growing pains to being two-time defending state champions. And they did a wonderful job, and they wrote that story themselves.
Let me just read the credits again before. FCAC Western Division champion, FCAC champion, state double A champion, state open runner-up. You're not here for the wrestling coach, are you?
No, he's back there. You brought a lot of guys, too.
Okay, next up, wrestling. Coach Ricky Shook. So FCAC Western Division champion, FCAC champion, state double O champion, state open champion, New England champions, Connecticut High School Wrestling Team of the Year, Ricky Shook, Connecticut Wrestling Coach of the Year, James Escone, Connecticut Assistant Wrestling Coach of the Year.
Coach, what would they look like if you were bald?
I don't know. I hide my gray hair. You know, I do hair in the winter. It was a special year for us. We crowned 6 open champs out of 14 weight classes for the state of Connecticut. It was like a dual meetup against the state for us. We finally won New England's. I don't know how, but we did. First time since 1992 any Connecticut team did. We also had 4 All-Americans this past 2 weekends ago that placed top 8 in the Nationals. So, and we're all underclassmen, so hopefully we'll do well next year. I have one coach here. That's Coach Escone. Second year, he gets assistant coach of the year. It's his second year with us. Captain, one of them's at driver's ed. Andrew Marquis, back there. Those are my 2 captains for this past year. We graduate 4 starters, so the future's still bright. That's about it.
I gotta say, Coach, anywhere I go, Danbury is a wrestling high school. You've really created a reputation for a school that we all can be proud of. And they comment not only on their athletic ability, but their sportsmanship. You do a wonderful, wonderful job. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sports Michael's Cup, Christine Miller.
Hold on, we're right here.
We are in our 17th year of Unified Sports at Bradley. 3 sports a year. We start with soccer, we do basketball in the winter, we do track and field in the spring. We meet every Wednesday throughout the school year, even when we're not preparing for a sport. We do something we call Fun Club, which is where kids of all abilities come together to participate in whatever games and sports they want to play in the gym. But really, unified sports, unlike lots of other sports, is not about the score or your athletic ability. It's just about kindness and inclusion and acceptance. And that's what everybody who comes and participates there learns. And I think that's why it's so popular, because we receive tons of applications for kids who want to come and be the helpers every year, and we actually can't take everyone. So the Unified Sports Program has expanded to include leadership and service to the community, where they have done hundreds of service projects helping the community, which are done in a way that is also inclusive. A great part of that was the programs for the Standing of Commons in our schools, where Gladby won the award for Start With Hello, which is all about, again, kindness and inclusion. So Unified Sports is one piece, and it's nice that being the coach, but it's not even, like, I just bring the kids together. It's the kids, it's all of the other adults who volunteer and participate, and the parents and the people who come out that make it. It becomes like a giant family, and it kind of creates that sense of community in the school. And I'm excited to see it expanding now. We have a program at the high school, and there are starting to be a lot more programs around this end of Connecticut. So I thank everyone for supporting our program for this long, and thank you.
Okay, public participation. No one signed up for public participation, so does anyone here want to speak? All right. Anybody in the first row? Second row? Anybody in the whole building? All right, that's a first. Okay, let's move on to the consent calendar.
Motion that the Board of Education approves the items on the consent calendar, Exhibit 17-41 through 17-42 as recommended.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Matrina. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions? Motion carries. All right. This section is we call board representative, but it's a spotlight on your school. And Dr. Sal and I talked about this in a while, and wanted to invite the schools here to talk about their school and their achievements and everything that they've been doing, so we can hear the great things that are going on in each person's school. So for tonight, we have Shelter Rock School.
I'm the interim principal at Shelter Rock, and I'm really just here to introduce The important people at the school, I'm really not going to speak because there's too many good things happening at Shelter Rock, and I think it's the best for you to hear directly from our students who are the heart of the school and the programs that they are leading, involved with, and having achievement. And our teachers have put together with some of our students a slide presentation, so I'm hoping that would be okay if we showed that. I know some of our children would like to speak directly to the Spotlight programs at Shelter Rock. I also want to thank the parents, PTO president, all of our families for coming out tonight to support us. What I'd like to do, though, is have all of the children from Shelter Rock come forward, because I know that many of you are going to be speaking or standing together, so it would be great for the board to see their faces. And then those of you, as your slide comes up, are ready to be able to speak directly to the board, because I know you prepared really well, and I don't want to forget anybody tonight. So the teachers are going to present. I'm just going to give you a very, very brief overview of things that many of you know. But Shelter Rock is the second largest school, going for the largest school next year. K through 5 elementary. Our current enrollment is at 560. We added a big event happened in January. We added 4 classrooms, the modulars. They were wonderful, brand new buildings, so we were able to move our 4th grade. This year we have 4 4th grade classrooms, so we did move them over 2 weekends. Actually, the first weekend we moved them and several other moves. Asked the staff, we did 16 moves over 2 weekends without an impact to instruction, and that was really important to do so that the grade levels are together. And that teachers could unpack. So there was a noticeable sigh of relief. So I want to thank the board. I know the teachers and students do, but it was really a cause for celebration with those new classrooms. Donna Gagliardi, our art teacher. Hi, I'm Donna Gagliardi, our teacher at Shelter Rock School. I was asked by Principal Dawn Bartz to do a whole school initiative that would be done from kindergarten through 5th grade and would promote the core values of community, compassion, character, and courage. And the artwork would be made. The artwork would be displayed throughout the school when it was completed, which it was. And 4 pins, 4 pieces of artwork would be chosen and then made into pins. Each one of the 4 pins representing one of the 4 values of community, compassion, character, and courage. So I had to do a project that would be similar in every grade level, but then adapt to each grade level for the different degrees of abilities. So the way I decided to approach it was to approach it in an abstract way, have the children design abstract designs that through the color and the harmony of shapes and patterns would, in an abstract way, would show those values. So we did a lot of learning about principles of color, the color wheel, and opposite colors and complementary colors and analogous colors, and what happens when you put 2 colors together, what happens when you put yellow next to purple, how to emphasize part of the artwork, how to use contrast to keep the eye moving, what kind of shapes might show
different things, and so there's a lot of discussion about a lot of, patterns and different things. At different grade levels, we use different materials. Some grade levels we made our own stencils, and we created stencils, and then created patterns with the stencils. We used a lot of paint, we used collage, a lot of different techniques. And I could never fit 560. Actually, it's more than 560 because I invited the faculty to participate also. And a number of the faculty did participate, so I could never fit them all here, but I have some hanging up, and of course, some of the children have brought their artwork with them. And I think we have some of the children that want to speak. So, you want to show their artwork? Okay, this is
Every kid in the school was asked to make a pin representing the feelings and thoughts of Shelter Rock and only using shapes and colors. In my pin, I used the colors that contrast and complement it, such as purple and yellow, and blue and orange. I went over the lines in Sharpie, thicker than others, to show that Shelter Rock is bold in its own way. I had fun creating my pin. It truly helped me learn to describe without using words.
You have to talk.
There you go. Okay. Anybody else? Art?
I'm Leslie Barton from Shelter Rock School. I'm in 5th grade in Miss Hildebrand's class. I'm a part of the Leadership Club and the Kind Club. I will be talking to you today about the Stellar Glow program and the leadership team. The leadership team is a group of people, a group of kids, let me say, that want to make the school a better place to be kind, learn, and have fun. We ran a lot of programs like how Ms. Gavin already was saying, the principles of excellence, they read across the color, they encourage the kids to read, and the Start with Glow program. The Start with Glow program is a program where we want to prevent kids from stopping bullying, and we want them to have a better place and a better community. We always want people to have fun and always start with love. Thank you. Aside from all these assemblies, we do have some groups as well. I happen to be a lucky member of the Kind Club. In the Kind Club, we do little actions, but they make big differences. For example, as you can see up on the board, we have the candy cane cards for staff members. This does not tell world peace, but it opens space in the hearts. One of the many activities we do in Kind Club is raise funds for organizations in our place. Each month, we have a spirit day. You can participate by dressing up and donating money for charities. I like the fundraisers we do because we benefit from charities that are close to our heart. One charity I like is the New England Pandas Pans. I have pandas, and to help a fellow kid with a disorder makes me feel like the school has a great accomplishment.
I am Lauren Press.
This year we renovated the library. We got around 800 new books, fiction, nonfiction, and we new edition. We got new resources where students can access books 24/7, both online and kids love them. They're flying off the shelf. They're very excited. We also have new technology. We got 3 new Chrome cards to share amongst the school, which has increased computer usage and technology projects and research. We got a brand new green screen studio equipped with cameras, lights, movie production software, and it just increased excitement with the teaching staff and the students.
Hi, I'm Karen O'Neill. I'm the literacy specialist at Shelter Rock. Another resource that we added this year was some online resources. A program called Core Clicks and another program called BookFlix. Teachers are using these in the classroom for instructional practice, as well as we are hoping to have a huge impact and increase our summer reading with these. We can be accessible by any device. So hopefully at home they can be used more widely. And we just recently, last week as a matter of fact, had 2 parent nights, both with excellent attendance, where we showed parents how they can access their child's book account at home.
Hi, I'm Mike Gannon. I'm the math coach at Shelter Rock. One of the things we started this semester, looking for innovative ways to raise achievement, started project-based learning with a small group of 4th graders, where we're offering them real-world problem solving with school improvement plan ideas that came up that are issues going on in our building. And I can tell you about them, but it's much more interesting if they tell you what they're working on. So who's our?
Our team is supposed to solve most of my problems in our shelter. So we split up into 4 topics, and then each chose one. It was making a digital math game, working on the courtyard, parking stuff. And the library. We have been working every Tuesdays and Thursdays to try to finish our projects and display it for our school.
Hi, my name is Charlie, and I'm in 4th grade, and I'm in the self-autonomous class. We've been working on projects, and I chose the media, and I have 2 other people working with me, and we were seeing how we can make space or make it more interesting for the kids. And we decided to have a survey with all the classes and what they would like for
One day, our teachers brought us to the gym to watch videos about natural disasters like tsunamis and tornadoes. We even saw a video about the future of New York. It was full of water and the water was rising slowly. This got us thinking about global warming. After we choose questions to answer, then meet groups. Ever since then, we have been researching to find out the answers to our questions.
For the past couple of weeks, we have been working on researching for questions. We have also been working progress. One way we like gathering our information is from several people from our university. These people help us gather information that help us answer questions that we find important. We also have learned great things from books, websites, Google Classroom, YouTube, and much, much more. I say a huge thank you to the people at West Point who helped us gather the information that we are using right now. We have learned so much about global warming and how it affects different parts of the world. We even got to meet a real meteorologist.
I like being able to work with a team because it is fun to work together. We like discussing our topic and comparing our notes and figuring what fits and what doesn't. Sometimes we disagree, but we usually work it out by doing more research. Being able to work with 4th and 5th graders is fun because we get to work, learn, and make friends together.
I think as a 3rd grader, working with 4th and 5th graders is really cool, don't you? We also learn so much from them. I'd like to think they learn a little from us too. They have amazing ideas. I don't even think of them. We all make new friends, even 5th graders. The 4th and 5th graders show us really cool websites. Thank you.
Loads of ideas for our end project. We can either choose one of those ideas, mix them together, or think of our own project. Here are ideas that some groups chose. So, some groups are doing news reports using the new green screen. A group is doing a website with slideshow, and other groups are doing posters, games, videos, and even stories. And what my group is doing is 3D model of the document.
So just quickly, these are some of the other things that are happening within our classrooms. In grade K, they've been working hard on writing opinion and persuasive letters to help us fix up our playground. In 1st grade, they're learning with the reading unit on reading strategy. So in grade 2, they're following the scientific method and writing lab reports. In grade 3, they're working with grade 1 students on STEM science projects. Grade 4, they've been doing genre studies with a focus on biography. And with the final project where the student has to then become and present the person they studied. And 5th grade has been working on the Native American Homes project.
Hi. Last year around Halloween time, we had the Danbury Police Department come and visit us. They talked about staying safe while trick-or-treating. They also showed us their police cars and talked about how to help to keep the community safe. It's very kind of them to come and visit us and shelter at school.
This is just more community connections with the fire department. They also, I'm Jen Hildebrand. I'm a 5th grade teacher at Shelter Rock. This is the fire department. They also came to visit us and they showed us some fire safety, and they came and had lunch with our students during the Start with Hello week.
encouraging young students to love reading. During the assembly, we talked about how reading is fun and how it gets them out. Some students even got to share with the school on why they love reading so much.
So this is at the beginning of the year, we won a grant, a Voya grant. It was an innovation grant, and we won this $2,000 to kick off innovation in our school. It was a technology grant. We also partnered throughout the year with many different grade levels with the Richfield Playhouse. This was an example of students at a performance of the Rainbow Fish.
You want to talk to this or you want to? Okay.
And another example, they worked with them to do Charlotte's Web, where each student received a free copy of the book, and they did a bunch of related projects around that.
Hi, Jeff Rosado. I'm a third grade teacher at Shelter Rock. I've been there 14 years, 13 years in first grade, and this year I got moved to third, so I wanted to connect with my students better. I knew the students very well. I knew they were into sports, so I spent this summer making as many contacts as I could with college basketball coaches around the country, and the response was very overwhelming. That's pictures of my classroom, actually, donations that came in from the coaches, from jerseys to posters, autograph pictures. We've been invited to basketball games, to camps, to practices. I've used the posters as incentive for good behavior and good academics. The Western Connecticut State University coach has been very helpful and invited us to a game. We had a private meet and greet session. They did autographs, pictures, and we're also doing pen pals with them now.
Hi again. Invention Convention is where kids sign up to learn about the invention-making process and also create their own invention, which would be in a contest. Invention Convention is great because it promotes critical thinking, being resourceful, and creative in your invention.
And finally, we would like to end by inviting all of you to come to the 30th year of our Shelter Rock School Science Fair. We are using the gym, the cafeteria, and now the media center. We have so many participants and wonderful projects. So that'll be Tuesday night, April 18th from 7 to 8 if you're available. We would love to have you come to Shelter Rock and see more of what we're doing. I guess the PTO president.
I just want to make sure of all the children who wanted to speak had a chance to speak. Is there anyone?
Anyone who is not, come on up.
Hi, my name is Mercedes Taylor. I am in 5th grade, and I am going to be talking about the golden tickets. The golden tickets are tickets that you win when you're doing something respectful, responsible, safe, and caring. If you get enough golden tickets, you might be able to win a prize. In our school, we have 4 mottos: to be respectful, to be responsible, to be safe, and to be caring. Thank you. Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I am in 3rd grade. I am here to explain how we Shelter Rock students keep our school growing together. The most important part is we have a wonderful principal, Mrs. Bartz, who started the leadership committee. Next, we started the Start With Hello program, which was about stopping bullying and making new friends. Also to start greeting people with the simple word of hello. That's how we keep our school growing and staying together. Hello, my name is Mishi Bukadia. Today, I'm here to talk about the Start With Hello program. Start With Hello program tells children
Last year, we found this coding site named Scratch, and we still use it this year. But this year, I've gone on my own, and I've been doing more advanced things. So I've made this project about code, and I have, I'm in two groups, the math group and this group called Green Screen Productions, where they already talked about it, about the climate change, and I'm deciding to branch my project out of one of those.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Montesano, and I'm a parent of a first and third grader at Shelter Rock and also the Beatles. I just wanted to say how proud I am of our school and all the programs that are going on this year. Everyone has worked so hard in our school, including the kids, and I want to thank them as well. They've done an excellent job. I'm just grateful for the teachers and all the collaboration that goes on at our school. And that brings such engaging and learning opportunities to our schools. So thank you, Mrs. Bartz, and thank you to all our amazing teachers and students.
I just want to say thank you, and that was amazing, and we appreciate you guys, students and staff, for what you do, and please keep sending us messages of all the good stuff that you're doing. I just wanted to present you guys with this certificate of appreciation.
What? I didn't know you were here, but I snuck in. No, that's okay. Did you see them do it? Yes, I did. I did. So is this the meeting over? It's time to get. Yeah. Good job. Oh, you could move. You just can't get in. How's my girl? Mr. Rosado. You know what? The flow was going really well.
I miss my.
You did awesome. Hi, good. How are you? Nice to see you. Good job. Very good. Exceeding
All packed?
I am. I mailed all the things down. I was going to don't forget
Continue while people are exiting the room. So the student representatives, anyone here from DHS? Okay, just say your names when you
Hi, I'm Samantha Mortera. I'm Vice President of Board Congress. Today we just have a few important school updates and plans for the upcoming spring season. Today, all juniors participated in taking the SAT. The date will be April 26th. Although we don't have the participation percentages yet, overall they went really well. The quarter ended yesterday, April 4th, and report cards will be issued on April 20th. The students and staff returned from spring break. Last week, our theater program carried out an incredibly well done and successful play entitled Once on This Island. Also recently, we had online registration for grades 9 through 11. It's completed online this year, which is the first time students have done it on their own. It went really well and proved to be an easy process. Only 2 students out of 3,251 didn't complete it online. We had a really good turnout.
I'm Monique Lima. I'm treasurer of Board of Governors. And for an update on construction, they're done pouring the concrete and are now installing beams. Noise is minimum. Great time.
Was it bad today? While you were testing, I'm just curious.
Was it what?
How was it today?
I didn't hear it at all.
You hear?
I took it and I didn't hear it. So. Upcoming events include junior prom on April 28th, senior prom on May 26th, and graduation, which is set for June 19th at 5 at the high school, with the rain date of June 20th. For seniors, they are well along in the college application process. They applied to over 481 different schools. We had 85% of seniors apply, and the top 5 being WestCon, UConn, Nautica, Central, and Southern. And congratulations to our winter sports coach, Owen.
Good evening, Deanna Hernandez representing ACE. I have a new substitute principal, so he hasn't got the hang of printing minutes. He's doing a good job. He's actually principal and still a teacher of my class, so I don't blame him. Last Tuesday and Wednesday, March 28th and 29th, 11 ACE students and 2 English teachers went to Camp Hurley in Patterson, New York for an overnight academic camping trip. The trip included survival skills, hiking, learning, and playing Native American games, creating a journal, writing poetry, drawing and sketching, and even making a dream catcher. It was a time of learning as well as a time for group bonding. The superintendent's award for this school year was awarded to Marianne, me. The CAVE Awards for male and female students were awarded to Elaine Ortiz, who is a January graduate, and Gianni Alessandro. Today, ACE underwent its testing day, which saw 19 10th grade students complete the CAPT science test and 27th, 11th grade students take the SAT. 9th graders today experienced a trip to the Norwalk Maritime Center, and 12th graders went on a trip to the Capitol today. ACE has registered to Clean City Danbury on Saturday, April 6th, in an effort to give back to the community that supports us to provide community service opportunities for ACE students. ACE Gardens project will begin after April break, and we will see the construction of 4 raised gardens, garden beds, and greenhouse. And it's open to the community. Everything we grow, anyone in our grove gets to go pick.
Where's the garden?
At our school.
Where at?
I think it's going to be in the backyard.
In the parking lot?
I'll let you guys know. ACE has registered for Clean City Danbury on ACE Wellness Day will happen this Friday, and we'll see workshops for students that involve art therapy, substance abuse, healthy relationships, conflict resolution, yoga, and at the end of the day, ice skating lessons for students. The ACE Whitewater Rafting Trip on the Hudson River is placed for May 31st to June 2nd, and the ACE Poetry Coffee House is scheduled for Thursday night on April 25th. I'll see you guys all there. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice night, guys.
You too, thank you. All right. Superintendent's report.
Oh, it'll be on, it'll be on the concrete over there. You remember last week we talked about whether it would be wise to move our calendar time regarding high school construction, particularly with the extra days we had unexpectedly with the snow, and to have the start of the school year for students, that is, to begin on Tuesday after Labor Day. And before you, there's a calendar that's reflective of that, so we'd have to modify the current calendar that we have. One other thing that we have done, you've heard me talk, and I'm sure you've heard teachers talk, regarding the substitute problems, challenges we have to do the embedded work that we're doing with teachers and also finding substitutes. So what we decided to try was to take the days before the school year begins for the tenured staff, no difference for non-tenured. There has traditionally been 2 days. We would have one day where we meet together. We didn't do it last year because of construction, ice, up in the auditorium, and then teachers would go to their class and set up, and one day would be some PD work. What we decided to do was take one of those days and put it during the school year to give the teachers another full day of work, so we wouldn't have to lose a day of substitutes and schoolwork with kids. So consequently, when you put that in the school year, you wind up pushing the calendar out, is the point. So if you look at the calendar, you can see in August, the 29th, 30th, and 31st would be our new teachers. They have the 3 days. And then the Friday, you would have everyone come back, and then they would have some building meetings and then do their PD and go into their classroom. That's going to be a little, we'll see how it works. It'll be interesting. Then everything else is pretty much the same until you get to the end of the year. Now we did put in the snow days in the end of the year, so they're built in there. It is late. Don't worry about that. I worry about maybe going into April. It's one of the downsides of starting after Labor Day, and then having those days off that we traditionally have off. There are schools around us that begin after Labor Day, but they don't have many of the days that we have off. They go to school on Columbus Day. Many go to school on Veterans Day. Some have a different pattern for that Lincoln, for the President's Day weekend, but we don't. We give those days. Some do not celebrate the Jewish holidays. We do, right? So that all goes into our calendar. So when people say, well, the school district, well, yeah, they do, but you've got to really look at the days that they take. So if we do this, we feel, I can't say 100% will be ready, but we have a better shot. Instead to get an extra 4 or 5 days with the weekend. We've moved summer school out of the high school this year so that they really can concentrate on their work. So if we approve this calendar, it does go to the end of the school year, as you can see. What is it, the 27th, yeah, which is a long time. And if you look in the narrative, I made sure we bolded it, because there's always a problem, right? That if it goes beyond June 30th, the law does not permit you going to July. You can't go Saturdays. It's not about coming in, it's about 900 hours now. It's not about, you know, if you come in 2 hours, does it count? You need 900 hours. You can't have a 10-hour day, you know, obviously, but for us, we would have to go into the April vacation. And if we do that, we'll be made up, in case where there's an excess number of emergency days, a day will be made up in President's Day recess. We put that in as well. If we get there and it looks like trouble city here, we can do President's Day weekend, right? So that gives you a little safety valve. Other than that, Bill, I don't know, Joe, anything else with the calendar?
We shared it with CWED PTO this week, and we went through the whole thing with them. They all felt comfortable. It's pretty much, as Sal said, this same old, other than kicking it forward because of the construction. So the parents were pretty thumbs up.
Just a first
question. I don't have a mic.
Yeah, we're short on mics.
Budget.
Mike, has no mic.
Just, if you're aware, there's a bill that was passed out of the Education Committee to eliminate, it actually implements some of the recommendations of the PD task force that was established a couple years ago to eliminate 30 hours of required training PD time. Bill 950, yeah, actually that's a separate bill. Yeah, it's good news. We're doing a lot of kind of scaling back of some of these unfunded mandates, and I think PD relief is a good thing. But I mean, the bill still has to get approved and signed and all that, but it did pass committee without any opposition. So is there the possibility that we could eliminate the 1 hour release days if that ends up becoming law and begins next year? I don't want to put you on the spot. Like, I believe it would.
When we looked at the entire scope of the work, the hour, it's not just the hour. We added up the hours to, I think it was either 480 or 520 hours, including of those Tuesdays. And I will tell you, if we limit how many days that we release teachers, I'm telling the principals that their alternative to do the work that they do. We're doing a lot of work with PD work, and PD with what they call the SRBI process, or talking about students and student needs and building their goals and programming, they can do on the Tuesdays. And their lens now has to be not just a school day to release a teacher, but how are you going to use those Tuesdays better and those 4 days, Mike? So I don't think that would be helpful to us. In fact, I've been lobbied to come back and ask you for 2 hours. I said no, based on our conversation. I don't think that would release us much time. I'll yield to you guys.
We always covered the unfunded mandates with.
Speak louder, Bill.
Grab that microphone, Bill. We're down to about 3 of them now. So.
And down to, we were able, through our regular training program, to cover all the state requirements with teacher evaluation and technology training and reading, et cetera, et cetera. What Sal was talking about is really the time for teachers to get together and have grade level meetings where they actually talk about each student individually. They're called grade level meetings, they're called data teams, SRBI, which are the interventions. So if you think of it this way, Kelly and I sit together and we look at our 50 kids, student by student by student. We look at the data sets that go with those kids. We look at the strengths and the areas of weakness. We plan for specific interventions that will be used to help kids that are following through that process. So that is what's always been reported back to us as probably the most valuable work that we do. And we have been struggling mightily. We're sending something out tonight actually to the admin council for tomorrow mornings when we get together. We can ask them if there's any other way of condensing the time. As Sal said, what they've been asking us for is more time. And we're trying to find that sweet spot.
But I do think where it would help is that, like the requirement on the CPR and the thing on the school bus thing now, if you have to do that, that just takes them that time. So does it help? It does help. It provides us to do the work that we think we need to do instead of the superfluous work. It's not that it's unimportant, it's just that in the scope of things, it's very difficult to cover. And some of those have been modified, have they not? You testify for?
I would also say that a lot of the PD days, so the 4 large full-day PD days are typically used for like the delivery of new curriculum, new instructions, new programs, things like that. But the 1 hour early release, as Bill had mentioned, is really time to either meet with departments, so departments like our ELL department, special ed, our PBS departments, other departments do more individualized work outside the building, because sometimes we have staff that need that training. And it's also utilized to talk about those student-driven decision-making. And my fear would be if you took away those 1 hour early release, that you would create the problem of pulling more teachers away from their classes, because they need that. I mean, we have many students that are not where they need to be, and they need the time to look at how to help them and support them and make sure that they're making progress. And if you took away the 1 hour early release, I think the only way to get that done would be to remove a teacher and suck them out of their classroom, which I think would just negatively impact the instruction that's going on there day to day.
And the other thing is, I didn't realize till I got here, we run 3 tiers of busing. Consequently, we have 3 tiers of release time. So we're trying to bring these people together. And when we tried, I thought to do the technology, you know what, it just didn't work. So we constantly were, it was just crazy the way things were working.
When I do a professional development for special ed teachers, I literally have 3 weeks of people coming in. So you plan it where you're doing a little delivery of the high school group, then they leave, then you have your middle school group come in a half an hour later, and then they leave, and then you have 2 weeks of elementary groups. So it does become challenging to make the times and individualize it to all those people, but it does allow to do some of that small group work that's individualized to just that one level.
I say keep asking for less, particularly in those required areas that really don't impact the teaching and learning. That's what's killing us.
And that's really mainly
The ones they want.
I mean, I'm just looking for quick, I mean, there are a handful, 3 or 4 here, of actual school closed PD days.
Those are the
Right.
4. The way I think I want to add them up for you, there's 186 days, and there's 180 school days, right? So then the other 6 days are PD days, and we've been having a conversation around that. We have traditionally used what they call, what would they call those days? Help me out.
Like the pre-opening.
Yeah, the pre-opening and the post. Those I think are days that need to be used. And I get you want to set up classrooms, so we put that as a PD day instead of whatever day. Let me use those terms. So that gave us more time. But we have the 186 that we won't pay for, and that's why you see that in there. Some school districts have 187, 189, and they might have 182 school days, and then they have a few extra days and they put them in the school calendar. We have the bare minimum, 180 and 6.
Question, the purpose of this really is to give us more time for construction? Is that really what
correct.
is driving this? So
That's the only thing, the year after.
We'll be fine.
We've had folks in the past, right, come to us and ask to start school after they we've had some conversations, and we've stayed away from it because of the amount of days that we have. But in this case, we think we need it for the high school. And just to do the high school could create a big problem for us with busing and every other thing. And logistically, it didn't make sense to do that. So that's why we just do everybody. Following year, I'm sure we do the following year. We have parents come in and say start after Labor Day, right? It doesn't go too far, but this is strictly for the construction. Strictly.
Any other questions?
Yes. I don't need a microphone. This calendar pushes very late into June.
Yeah.
There are certain sections of certain buildings, particularly in the middle school and high school, that get unbearably hot. We're talking 90 degrees plus. So my question, and you don't have to answer it now, it could be more food for thought, is how are we preparing to address those areas? How are we going to address it? Are we going to allow adjustments to the dress code so kids can wear shorts or flip-flops or whatever? Because I know, in the high school area D, there are rooms that push 100 degrees in the summertime, and that's not even that far into the summer. So there's some concerns that I have as far as students and staff having to function in, 90+ degree classrooms with poor ventilation. So I'm hoping, the administration takes that into account and has, at least starts to put some thought around how are we going to address that.
It's a good point, because that is, and the other thing is we don't open windows, so the youngsters are allergic to bees and all that stuff, particularly at the elementary school, so we don't have that option anymore, because we don't have screens anymore.
How come no screens?
Good question, Chief.
Maybe you could find like a sale on microphones and screens at the same time.
No, I think that's an issue. We do have those recommended early dismissals depending on the heat index that we're very mindful of.
Yeah, but there are some classrooms, and I know, because my wife works in some of these rooms, where I get pictures of thermostats reading 98 degrees.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just like, I have one window, I can't open it because it's always locked, there's a door to an office, that window opens, but there's somebody working, so it's closed, you're pushing almost into July.
Yeah.
It's, the last thing we need from a liability standpoint is kids passing out. Or teachers passing out and getting hurt. So, it's just food for thought.
Yeah, that's good thinking. Yeah.
Elementary schools, not so much, but those the bigger buildings, the middle schools, the high schools, they're a little more aged. There's not exactly central air conditioning.
And just the size of the building.
And it's enormous.
Would it be feasible to put in a temporary screen and some fans to open those windows in those specific rooms?
We've got fans in some, but I mean, it's not.
It's hot air blowing hot.
Yeah, it's just not enough to do anything really. I mean, up on D4, I mean, there's just there's just nothing. I mean, we put fans up there, big, the big kitchen fans. We've had those shooting down the hallways. I mean, we did that for some summer school stuff a couple of years ago. It just doesn't.
The only thing that works when it does is now the auditorium has been air conditioned. They do go down there periodically for that. But that D wing is a heat.
Dr. Sal, can't we pick up a day in February? Do we have to have the 19th and the 20th off? And can we pick up a day in November, at least a half a day on the 22nd? Maybe, we always used to have that Wednesday as a half day rather than a full day off.
Sure.
And because we have Friday, you're giving them Friday. So if we go to school half day on Wednesday, we pick up a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at February, the 19th and the 20th, just this one year, so because we're coming back after Labor Day, I don't know how many days we have to pay them anyway for the teachers, or I don't know how many days they're supposed to get in.
26.
26.
But no, the point's well taken. I mean, we could, I gotta think about President's Day weekend, just because I gotta check that out.
You'd still be getting the 3 days off.
They may not have to have the 20th off, they can have the 19th
So, in other words,
off.
to push it back to the 22nd being the last day?
Yeah, we're trying to get it to that Friday rather than go into that last week.
Yeah,
That's
this
a
is a
long
good idea.
time, Wednesday of that week is a.
Plus it expands your buffer zone in case we get another crazy
Winter.
I mean, we already have it down on the bottom that day, right? The 20th is the day for President's Day recess. So we could just act on it
Took the
earlier
20th
than
and
later.
half day the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, you could.
That gives you
school on
2
Friday
days
the 22nd.
to Friday.
Yeah.
The other idea, just looking at it again, is that 16th of January is a full day PD day.
Yes.
If you made that a kid day after Martin Luther King Day, and then the 20th of February could be a teacher PD day, so the kids would still have a long weekend, but the staff would come in.
Are we picking up a day?
No, you'd just be trading, you'd be swapping.
Yeah, you'd be swapping. We're trying to pick up a
15th
day.
is Martin Luther King's Day.
Yes.
No, you'd be gaining a kid day though.
We would be. We would be gaining, okay. As long as we're gaining some
Yeah, we're
hours.
gaining a kid day.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta look at that 16th day though.
Yes, why don't we look into the 2 days that Kathy mentioned, to pick up the days to the
I think that's an excellent idea.
Would it be feasible to take the 16th and move that to the end of the year and or you can't have 2 PD days?
No, these are strategically placed to do work that we're doing in the building.
Gotcha.
If we move them, we gotta look at that closely. So
You would just be swapping it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
That's
3 weeks out instead.
that might be a problem,
Okay.
okay? Because the only reason, when we told them we were moving those days,
Yeah.
they sat down there and looked at
When they
needed them
Yeah, right.
because of things that they're doing in their schools. I think we can look at it, and if it's doable, it just makes it that much easier. We'll try it, sure. But I think those 2 days, the 20th is doable, and certainly the half day before Thanksgiving
It
is
gives you a few more
doable in
hours.
light of the heat, and that brings us where, to Friday?
I don't know,
Yeah, well,
it may bring you to.
If you brought that to the 22nd, then you'd have the 22nd as a half day. Now, if you move the half day from the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, would you make the 21st a half day also?
I gotta look at it.
I'm just thinking that shorter days at the end of the year.
So if you could look into the days to switch it around to get us to the 22nd, that'd be great.
June. Let me just look at June.
A lot of schools do a half day that Wednesday before
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, private and public, so it's not uncommon.
That's a 1
No,
hour early.
it isn't.
It's not a full half day, it's only, the 21st is a 1 hour early release, and then the 22nd would be a half day.
Well, let's look at that. It's
Yeah.
it's a good idea.
So one more question.
Yeah.
How many, you mentioned it before, how many districts around us do Jewish holidays as well? Is that?
Someone help me out.
My son's district, they do them up in Southbury. I mean, it's spotty, but they have one but not two. We do two here.
I know New Fairfield does.
Does or doesn't?
Does.
City Waterbury
I'm not
does.
sure what,
Most of our immediate towns, Bethel does, and I think the towns right around us do.
Any more questions on the calendar?
all right, we'll make those good suggestions and we'll do that and come back with that modification, right?
And just one more question, and the April vacation, is it mandatory that we give a full week?
Yes.
From the chair.
It's a vacation all year, right?
That's right before ice cream season, man. That's the only time I get to go.
The answer is no.
It's not mandatory.
It's mandatory.
You're gonna hear about it.
Well, that's a different question. I
Yeah, that's a
wouldn't,
whole
I wouldn't
different
recommend it.
Parents are gonna take kids.
I think if it gets that bad, even,
Just take it out.
we need to tell them and then start doing
They
it.
do it during the regular school year anyway.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean,
Yeah, you just usually pull the kids 2 days
I
early.
folks in Florida every year, I mean, I know a lot of people who would pull their kids regardless.
Oh, I'm sure they would. But I was just asking the question if it was mandatory.
Easy catch.
Friday after Thanksgiving is evening. And I'm gonna be that turkey.
Yeah.
But I couldn't make it because I'd be too stuffed.
There you
Well,
go.
did you get those notes? Yeah, let's write them
Yeah,
down.
you get the parents to send their kids to school so they go shopping.
Yeah, right.
Legislative update.
The hearings are over ostensibly, right? There's going to be a subcommittee, Kelly, right, of the, is it the Ed committee that's gonna do it on special education and everything?
There's something on the new IE guidelines that are coming
Could you
out.
explain to the board the IE so they get
Sure.
whatever?
So an IEP is an independent educational evaluation, and I'm trying to think, last year, the year before, it was put into law, I believe it was 2 school years ago, that if a parent disagrees with an evaluation that a district employee does, they can request what's called an IEE, or an independent educational evaluation, and that would be at the district's expense, that according to criteria that we set, which is in line with the law, that the parent would be provided an outside evaluation. So that could be for academic, cognitive, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, any of the evaluations. It used to be that they could request one IEE per several year period. Now it's one request per area, so meaning a parent could disagree with the academic testing, the cognitive testing, the physical therapy evaluation, the speech and language, and essentially get several IEEs. One of the other areas that puts a burden on the district is that if the district fails to evaluate in a suspected area of disability, it also gives the parent the right to request an independent educational evaluation. So it is written so that parents are assured that they're getting non-biased evaluations, which is a phenomenal idea. The difficulty with it is that there's no really criteria set for why a parent can disagree with an evaluation. And likewise,
Who can do that outside evaluation is, there's not a lot of guidelines around that. So would you want your next door neighbor writing an evaluation for your child and submitting it to the school district with various different recommendations? So this IEE task force has reopened up to look at what are the criteria set to make it a little bit more specific. So that you make sure you want someone that is licensed and credentialed in the area in which they're evaluating, and also make some, that have experience with school-based aged children, as well as public school education and services that can be provided. So I am planning to go to speak to the task force on the 20th of April to advocate from the district perspective of, while I do not think it's a bad idea that parents have the right to an evaluation if there's question on the, the thoroughness or the objectivity of an eval. I also question just giving carte blanche kind of ability for a parent to dictate exactly who does the evaluation that could come in with recommendations that might not be in the best interest of kids.
Kelly, is this something that the district would pay for those independent evaluations? Is that what's on the table?
They already are.
No, I mean, is it like, but this new one, I mean, because if there's no, they could go to somebody in Manhattan for $10,000 for.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay, so are they talking about a cap on, or is that like even?
So they are looking at the criteria. So one of the criteria that we currently have set in our IEE that is written by the district are approximate, ranges of particular evaluations that are typical. Okay, yeah, so, and that would be something that we want to make sure that they still allow the district to set some of those things and not leave it up to just, general.
Thank you.
The other thing is, the thing that's going around and around is this whole thing on how they're gonna put together the ECS formula. I just read something, and I just came over to my desk just as I walked in here, about some recommendations of the possibility to how they're looking at the funding. The good news is, everything I'm reading benefits us, if they do it. The recognition that, mobility, indigence, and SES impacts learning, and there ought to be some accommodation, and also numbers of size. So we'll see what's happening. There's a budget that will be coming out when? From the state?
Appropriations budget is about in the middle of April, might well 22nd, we're hearing somewhere in that world. So that'll be another iteration on it. And what changes were made in that, all those things, there's all through the committee,
But that'll give us an idea of something. It won't give us an idea.
No one's seen that optimistic on what they were going to put out either.
That's going on. The graduation requirements we talked about last time, that's still moving down the same venue. We're setting some materials on mandates. All of this stuff does cost money, and we're trying to look at all of them, and there are some task force out there to do some of that. And maybe there's the will to do something there, like the hours of training. Now we have to train bus drivers. With EpiPens makes sense, but stopping a bus, it could just create nightmares for everyone. But there are a lot of things going on that we got to look at. Anything else for the legislature that we could update them, Mike, if you want to think of? Okay. The Danbury Day is, we have that down there. One thing on the budget, I might as well say at the same time. Last night, in the message to the town, the recommendation is 2.25.
2.25 million from the city for next year for 17-18. It's about a 1.5% increase, I think, give or take. And overall, the board asked for just shy of $5.9 million as your request.
And we have a meeting Thursday with the subcommittee to explain ourselves.
Yeah, and that's Mr. Lady's group.
That's tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow night.
Did you stop?
Yes, tomorrow night, 6 p.m.
And the third floor in the, not council chambers, or a small room.
Yeah, room 3.
Yeah, 3C.
Can we record it this year so we can play it next year and we just replay it the year?
The members of that committee, Joe, was one.
Mr. Levy, Fred Visconti, Greg Seabury, Irving Fox, and
Joe Scott.
Oh, Joe Scott. Yeah.
And that's at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Is it premature to then
start meetings on the finance committee relative to cuts, or are you gonna wait for the official city, knowing that they're not gonna change, so?
It's gonna be the state, I don't know.
The state is what, for example, I have down, you know, something's gonna happen with this teacher retirement, it's not even considered here. Remember, we took the pathway of saying, we don't know what's going on with the state. Let's just assume we'll go through our own business, and whatever we allocate to you, we'll go from there. If it comes to fruition where they're gonna push back on some of these things, then we're gonna have to look at things differently. When they give us the ECS money, if they you know, corrupt some of the 8.7 million of our alliance, we have a conversation. Because over 50% of our budget, really, quite frankly, is coming out of that alliance money. And we're due for $2 million more, right? So theoretically, if everything goes well, you know, we won't get what we wanted, but we'd be closer to that number. But if they cut it back drastically, we're gonna have a problem. And then we go from there. And we won't know that, I'm looking your way.
Well, it's midnight, June 7th. But,
That's a problem.
but
That's a
there's
problem.
conversation about special session.
Yeah.
We can't wait for.
Really?
The board always had, you know, your money, by the way, is it's in people.
It's a what?
People. I mean, people. Our benefits we can't touch, right? Benefit that. And believe me, you know, reducing days or as give backs we can talk about. We have not been successful down that pathway. If we lose money and we have to cut, the board has the right at any time to reduce force or reduction in force. The only difference between doing it now and then, we have to go through a process. If you do part of the budgetary process, there's a whole different pathway. If we do it post the notice time, which will be approaching there, May 1st, then you gotta go through a process of notice and then do an assignment. So you always have the right to do that. God forbid it's precipitous to cut.
So the increase to us is 2.2 million.
Correct.
Is that correct? So we're losing, we have to then figure out a way as to what to do with about $3.7 million from your proposed budget. Not counting, because we've always had the ECS budget is a separate budget, but we looked at it together to sort of rob Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
To use that phraseology. Since the ECS number is not going to be relative to the state until June, we can't wait for June to see what we're gonna slice. So if we make an assumption that there's no change or take a conservative reduction, whichever you feel the ECS is gonna go, and work out your current budget and say, okay, these are my proposed formulas based on these scenarios. I think at some point between now and another month, you're gonna have to propose to us what you're gonna do with regard to these cuts.
Yeah, and the irony of that whole thing is that
I don't know what you're gonna cut,
well,
but that's something
well,
else.
it's gonna be people, that's what I'm,
Oh,
that's
okay.
what I'm saying. And that's why we've sort of thrown in the anchor, you know, to not do that too early. Because what will happen is it just creates chaos. And then we go through that whole process. I think we just gotta be patient and wait. We just got the number last night, right? We need to look at what we have in the budget, what we can do in the budget. I mean, there's some ideas of how we can recoup some of those. But on the top of that, you have Title II.
Yeah, Title II got
up to you.
Proposal eliminated for
Proposal
three
also
half
from the feds that are cutting. So we got the confluence of the state maybe, and then what's happening at the feds. We could be in a problem. And I just don't wanna go down that path right now and say, you know what, I'm going to reduce all of my coaches. And I'm gonna reduce all of my
I
aides.
understand that. Historically, we've always had maneuverability relative to keep labor, so as you put it, to keep personnel, keep teachers intact, okay? And as we've said before, we are at, I think last year, at the threshold that we have no more wiggle room, and it's going to erode your foundation, your base, which is what you're getting at now. So I understand, it's clear to me. So from put it this way, a political, I use the word political, or so that you don't create a fear, or I guess the word is political, you don't create a fear amongst your staff. What is your outside date that you would like to have meetings done? Because there has to be something where we're gonna have to know what your proposal is. Yeah, I don't think you can go
The
June
problem is,
7th, right?
the proposal right now, based on 2.25 million, is gonna have, you're talking, 3+ million in cuts, and I'll tell you guys this, like we said, you're talking catastrophic numbers, you're talking, the coaches essentially can get you there. I mean, the coaches all.
But I'm saying in a date, are we talking May 15th, May 20th,
I think you gotta, the mayor gives us our budget, final budget.
The first Tuesday of May is when it gets ratified, which I don't know what that is offhand.
May,
It's 6th or 7th.
No, first Tuesday, May is first.
The first, oh, so
I think right after
that'll
that,
ratify that.
And when's our last board meeting for the year? So we
Well,
need,
I think what's gonna happen,
so we need it between that date and our last board meeting for us to come up with.
yes.
And plus, pardon me, and plus at least, I'm not sure whether it all should be done, because this is a serious time, this particular time, so I'd hate to do it just in one session, so we may have to do it in a couple of sessions.
Again, Hartford's creating chaos for us. Everything we see helps Danbury. Everything we see helps Danbury, from the governor to the identification of more ECS. If I had an inclination it was going south, I'd have a different conversation. I don't have that feeling. My feeling is that minimally we'll have our alliance money with some increases, probably. The question I have is what's going to happen to it when it comes to us. Traditionally, we've received all of it. And the conversation needs to be had at that level. So everything I've heard so far, the government expects it to come to us in that thing. That would be my word. Danbury stands to gain an extra $2 million.
Right, $2.5 million for ECS and $9 million in special ed.
In special ed,
Exactly.
of which they've already accounting for it in their budget as an income.
Some of that.
Some of that.
Some of the
So
special.
you're saying, pardon me, so we're over the 8.7 million, we're to get
Yeah,
another.
there's another 11 million total in the governor's budget supposed to come to Danbury.
Through, okay,
Yeah,
so
I
then
would-
we're looking
I
at
would calm
somewhere
down
about
this step.
19, total of some $20 million relative to ECS.
Coming
Oh, I'm
back,
sorry, relative to Alliance, what you call Alliance.
income coming back to the town,
Okay.
right? Because the sped money goes back in the coffers, we get an allocation. But categorically, the money has come to us in the Alliance Fund, right to the board.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying, Richard. If it was going the other way, we'd probably have a different conversation.
So you're saying hold off now on what
At least they have to be.
proposed cuts are gonna be,
Yeah.
until we really
Yeah,
figure.
I understand, but, yeah, so, again, my question is, that, I didn't realize that, so it doesn't seem like it's as bad as a doomsday
Don't
scenario
expect
would.
that.
I'm sorry?
Don't expect the governor's budget to be the.
Come on.
So let me rephrase.
Which is true.
What is the latest date? We can't do this after, in the summer, can we?
Well,
You technically can.
in districts where they have budgets into July,
You technically may have to.
you may have to, they come back and they have a reduction in force. We don't have that. What we would have to do is count our way back in terms of days and notice people early. And Kim will give us the days that we have to notice folks. It'd have to be at least a 30-day notice to the end of the school year. So I would say, you probably have a special board meeting. We probably have finance committee meeting to go through stuff, and then a board meeting for discussion, and probably one more, and then give us 30 days to the end of June to notice
You got
folks. that
meetings
they
on May
will
10th, May 24th.
Yeah.
Well, these we can call special meetings.
You'd have to.
Right,
Oh, yeah, you'd have to do it. Like Mike's right, everything we've heard is, don't expect what the governor is talking about that you're gonna get.
Right.
But what I'm hearing from both sides, it seems what the governor's saying is we're getting money, and what the legislature's saying we're getting money, it seems, from both sides.
I mean, I don't wanna say a worst case scenario, but would maybe be to stay the same as last year.
Flat.
Yeah, flat fund.
Well, and that's what I was gonna ask that before, that, you know, we're also looking at this year, and then are we expecting the same things that come through this year to continue each year? Because as I keep looking at it, the city gives us $2 million a year, regardless of what that percentage is. So that percentage shrinks every year. Our budget, when it was $100 million, it was 2%. Now we're at $135 million, it's 1.6%. 5 years from now, it's gonna be 0.7. And you know, as our budget gets bigger, that same 2 million gets smaller in relation to it. And if we're not looking, you know, I don't know that we could expect to get $11 million extra every year going forward, even if we do get it this year. You know?
The governor's budget gave us the 8.7 million for 4 years. That was a guarantee. It comes to an end this year.
Right.
As Michael has said, if they renew that, and the tendency is to renew it, particularly for the alliance districts, that will give us that money at least maybe flat. But flat is a reduction with the inflation now.
Right, that's what
it's still a reduction.
We're getting 1% increases against 3%, 2.7% inflation. We're losing money.
And that's the argument I think we're gonna have to talk to the people on tomorrow night. You know, you are last in terms of your expenditure per student. Look around you. Look around you. And then that's what I keep, look around you. You got 6 schools of distinction. Where's that coming from? You know, there's gotta be an understanding. That money from the alliance is where a lot of
But you know,
that-
we've had this conversation before. The problem is, everybody wants to come to Danbury because everything works out well. We keep getting awards because, I mean, they just keep sitting down and telling you, until you really suck, we're not gonna give you anything.
Isn't that horrible?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna pay you if you fail. And other than that, we're gonna keep cutting you because you're doing a great job with what the stipend we're giving you.
But I think tomorrow night we make that point with them, not knowing what the governor's going, or what the state's gonna give us. That's why we just kind of holding. But all the news we're getting, the alliance districts seem to be not losing as much as the non-alliance districts.
I wouldn't tell them you're gonna get $11 million more. God, they cut the $2 million.
Yeah. Well, they'll take $2 million back.
They already know, that.
They'll forget it. So,
just for the board's understanding too, for the budget process, because you don't have taxing authority, you're not setting a mill rate. So the city's gonna give you your allocation of 128 million. You're responsible not to overspend that amount at the end of the year. So in theory, you could set your budget after July 1st, because all you're really doing is you're just setting a number for staffing levels. So in reality, you could, we don't wanna do that, but because you don't really have to set a mill rate, and there's looking for some of our policies, there's nothing prohibiting us from, setting a budget amount in July.
so that's how we go because of the uncertainty.
Yes, but I think the point's well taken. If we're thinking, and we do have to think of that and we need to work the 30 days back, have our due diligent meetings, look at this mindfully.
I hope the people on city council are prepared to sit back and have a meeting and look at the people in their face in the growth and expansion of this school district, and force us into having to lay teachers off is gonna be unbelievable.
There's one more calculus that's playing in this, and the towns through the capping can't go over 2.5%.
Marcus capped at 2.5% mill rate increase, and he's working on the current law that's on the books, which he's right, that's what he has. So right now, the city budget, total, board and city, is increasing at 2.5%. So he's technically right now slamming against the cap.
And that's what we're facing.
So we're all on that same cap.
Wait until interest rates go up and things go up and we get a little inflation, and now we're at 3.5%, 3.6% inflation rate, and the city can't go. The city's only giving us 1.6, 1.7, 1.7 against a 2.5% tax increase.
Oh, you have a question?
Well, I just want to clarify what you had said about noticing teachers if we were in that place, and then what Joe commented on about, maybe July 1st as being, do we truly have a drop dead date for when we have to, so our last board meeting is what, June 28th, did somebody say that? So I mean, do we have?
May 1st will be a date that we typically use for
reducing, notifying folks.
For the next school year.
Yes. For the next, typically, and that's what we are gonna do that for the knowns. Which is about a 30-day notice, 30-day notice, 60-day notice, but if we did, but the school boards are given the right, depending on your budget, to make those cuts, so it abbreviates the process. But we still have to go through that process. And no matter when we have that time, if they come back to us in July and say, you lost your $9 million for Alliance, we're gonna meet, and we're gonna say, and then we're gonna send a notice out and say, you 50 people next September can't come back. Now, if we did that now, we'd have a different process doing it, as a precautionary method, say, you know, we're gonna go to half-day kindergarten, all our coaches, and we could do that and not have to go through that process. But after that certain point, we have to go through that process. That's the big difference.
And then you run into the atrocious problem of the people that you have to lay off have to be the least senior people, so they're the people who make the least amount of money, so you have to cut even more of them to attain your goal of.
Yeah, and then, you know, as I found out last time we've done that, paying unemployment insurance is not cheap.
No, you're paying a hefty percentage of what your first and second year teachers are making.
Well, I'm going.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and.
Yeah, I think, you know, the more you.
Yeah, the more the merrier.
The more the merrier that we do, we talk with them. But that's the
Take your
process.
badge to your forehead.
Well, teacher recruitment.
Yeah, next week, you know, we've talked in the fall with that, we had some folks come. Kim will do a presentation, and we'll get it to you in the packet, I'm just letting you know it's coming.
Okay.
Okay, on the work that's been going on. The retirement fund is simply that push down, in terms of the teacher retirement. They've been talking about different ways of maybe phasing it in.
$7 million.
Yeah, there's a whole mess of things going on. There's not any clarity there, correct, on that?
Well, talk about the governor's proposed budget, that was in it.
Is he relenting to an overtime?
I heard there was some changes or proposed changes to it today, right?
Phasing.
It's an evolving idea. Many believe it should be completely off the table. It's really not fair to municipalities. They're not in charge of coming up. There isn't collective bargaining in terms of this. So it really should go through the General Assembly, but the idea is to throw it to the towns as this entire member did. But I don't know, we'll see what the appropriations budget proposal is at the end of April. I've heard it's likely to be some component of that.
Once they crack that door, man, it's gonna, you know.
Well, that's the thing. And
They'll lower
and
it
what
from
you do
7
this
million
year,
to
you
1
can
million.
say that
Once
this
the
year,
door's
and then
open,
next
it's
year
coming.
you can
But
double that.
it's a multiplier for liability, because every year he's gonna put a 5 or 10% multiplier on that liability for his pension. I mean, so it'll go forever.
Well, they're what, $65 billion behind on it or some ridiculous number?
So, stay tuned, right? New bus terminal.
Good news.
Good news. Propane.
In the old Republic Foil building, which is right next to Rizzo World Headquarters over there. Rizzo owns the property now. The back section will be the whole new bus company in the back, all new renovated offices, it's gonna be beautiful. STA is leasing the property from Rizzo. We went through permitting actually a couple weeks ago, so it's gonna be nice. All the propane buses are in order. They'll be in for give or take July. So they're moving out of the current location, which is, it's been, bus company's been there for time immemorial as far as I know. It's time. It's time for an upgrade. It'll be really nice facility. So we get all new building, all new back end.
Is the expectation for does propane
One at a time, one at a
in
time.
relation to fuel oil costs?
Yeah, propane, we're actually out to bid right now for propane. And there is, like all things, a current credit for 35 cents, but there's some rumor that Trump might repeal that in the EPA, so we'll see what that
Yeah, and
happens.
there's, well, I mean, I know, what I've seen in propane is that, and the oil prices are going up, and the expectation is oil and gas prices are gonna go up quite a bit this year.
Yeah, we're actually
And I think propane generally tracks that, right?
Yeah, we're actually out, we'll be out to bid on Friday, we'll probably go lock in.
Is that a year lock?
All right. Information, just some dates there. Let's see, graduation, 19th, all right.
Yep.
5 p.m., is that earlier than last night? It's always the time.
5 o'clock.
No, 5 o'clock.
Just get there at 3 for parking.
Yeah, 2 hours.
Next year will be fun.
This year,
Yeah.
the construction.
Well, there's, we gotta get some, reserve seating.
Yeah.
For,
Reserve seating and parking.
well, we have reserve
We have
seating.
reserve
We have parking, reserve
Can
parking.
we park inside of the new building?
Yeah. All right, board chairperson's report. Memorial Day Parade, yeah. We got a float going on, what's going on this year, Sal? I can't roll for that. Be a weight limit on it. Well, certainly not, you shouldn't be allowed to walk.
I think we got cut out of the budget.
The auto shop's working on the floor,
Can we
right?
get like a chair, like a throne I can sit on? No, we're good.
We got one, it's got the lunch valve on it.
Depends how many folks are gonna go, we're trying to get a, some kind of pull along.
Yeah.
We're working on that. Right on.
We
Hey,
have
wagon.
to pull it?
No, our new truck will pull that, we can have a truck.
Oh, horse and buggy.
A stool on the wheels. Schoolhouse on the wheels.
We're not
If
doing
you're gonna pull it, I'll be sitting in the back.
We're not
Be a
doing
workout.
What time in Vegas?
Huh? No, we're not doing the minimum.
Just a couple other things I have is, 2 Saturdays ago, I had a chance to visit New Hope Baptist Church. Ms. Cooper invited me. It was a great talk from the chief of police about active shooter situations. And I'll tell you one thing, they put a spread out over there. Bagels, muffins, fruit salad. That was really, really nice. So I just want to say thank you for inviting me. Ms. Cooper, was a great time. Met a lot of nice people, good grandchildren. It was nice. And I think Gladys is very, as we can imagine, very well liked there, very well respected. So I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me.
And on behalf of my pastor, and the people that met you, say thank you for taking time out of your schedule to come.
No, it was awesome. And Monday I visited a couple of schools, Shelter Rock and Rogers Park. Just all in all, great vibe. I mean, we saw Shelter Rock tonight. They were very impressive. Rogers Park is quite a treat to see. I got there right at lunchtime, so it was kind of 300 kids in that lunchroom. But all in all, I have to say, it wasn't. They were switching classes and stuff, and it was just a nice vibe, like as always, through school. Spent about an hour there, hour 45 at Shelter Rock. Just great all the way around. So anyone have any reports? Any reports or anything?
Just the superintendent evaluation committee, we met today. I think we had a good conversation. It was a very good meeting. And we scheduled a meeting for,
Yes, we changed the date, the date we discussed was incorrect.
I'm getting to see now.
The date that we had discussed, we said the 16th? Or the 28th. We said April 28th at 5:30, it's actually April 26th.
6, yes. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And at that particular time, I think we will have the full board, and the superintendent will be at that meeting. So I'm looking forward to wrapping up what we need to do for the superintendent evaluation committee. And thank you all again for coming out.
All right.
The superintendent comes, he can sit in Ralph's throne.
Yeah, so I'd like the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferguson. Okay, all in favor? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
That's it. Takes time to right? Wear your pinstripe monkey suit.